So you're fed up of all these Bloodhouse abuses in Etheria? Don't worry, I got you covered. Yo, what is up guys, I'm here hitting you up with a new Etheria restart video. Today we want to talk about PvP and especially on how we gonna deal with all these bruiser deaths you encounter in the Etheria. Yes, this is all about Etheria today, guys. This is not about RTA. Reason being is RTA has different playstyles and different ways of tackle it, and I feel like it's a little bit easier even in a certain degree, depending on how you pre-ban and draft and stuff like that. There's like also a completely different ball game. But for today, what we want to focus on is the Etheria, because nowadays the current metas, if you look at all these defenses, if you look at the top, you see around 90% tank deaths, right? That's all you see. Everybody's using Bloodbath, everybody's using Lighthouse. It becomes very old, it's super annoying, it's not fun whatsoever. It just shows how stupidly strong Bloodbath is in this game. And here for today, I figured out a way on countering these defenses. Now there might be some different ways on countering these defenses, but you know what? Bruising a bruiser team is not fun, and going full CC is also not fun. That's why, and I personally get the most enjoyment if I can just raw big dick DPS these defenses down. This is my personal goal. People want to set up stupid stall deaths and they want to tank as much as they can. They can do that, but you know what? My goal is to just destroy these defenses with as much DPS, all gas, no breaks. This is my playstyle, I love it, and that's why I made it for myself a mission to figure out, okay, how can I tackle these defenses, right? What type of DPS do we want to use for these defenses? I looked at my roster, I looked what I want to do, and my unit of choice was MaTeIRiA. MaTeIRiA offers so much for me in the current meta game that makes him the perfect unit to use for Etheria. He has a defense ignore 70%, 100% would be a lot better, but you know what, we only have 70%, so we go with that. We have a 70% defense ignore, which helps a lot, and he ignores targets passives, which is a huge deal for his kit. Obviously we want to have him maxed out because more stats, more damage, and that's how we play him. Now after that, we figured out what type of DPS we're using. We also need to know how do we support our DPS to clear these bruiser defense, right? We need stuff like attack buff, resetting, and so on and so forth, and figuring out one of the key features to unlock the full potential. I will not show you every single unit now. I will show you in a replay, but there was one key unit, and maybe everybody knows already. I didn't know. I just figured it out myself because I'm not a CC player. Obol actually is an incredibly strong unit for cleaving. And I'm not talking about revelation cleaving, I'm talking about like general cleaving. The reason why Obol is so good, so first and foremost, we all know he has his dispel on his second skill, and he has that big stun on his third, and he very reliably lands a stun, and we all know we play him on Codex. But actually what I personally didn't know or never noticed, because I don't play these type of units that much in PvP, is actually the fact that when you use a stun on enemies that have Lighthouse or Gigabyte or whatever, it deactivates the shell. So now if you use an Obol, for example, to go first in your lineup for DPS, and you stun units with Lighthouse, and then you do your damage, Lighthouse doesn't trigger to heal the enemy, like the units up, and gives them a turn meter boost. That does not happen. With Gigabyte as well, Gigabyte also doesn't trigger. Like when you stun them, they can't do anything, okay? So this was a huge discovery for me, and based on that, I set up my team, and my team here got me a lot of wins. Now I did 5. I can't show you the fights I did before because we got a update. Now this is not possible to show you the matches before, but I show you the matches I did today, and this is all in the mythic ranking, and I use the exact same team. You know what? Let's just jump into it, and I just show you what I came up with. Just watch. I think I don't even need to say anything. Just look what happens here. Yep. And the tank dev is gone. Completely ripped. There's nothing left. And GG. We won. Full Khalif. No questions. Are you wondering, this is probably only that because he's a master player right now. Now let's move to the next one. Same thing again. It's the same team setup and it works wonders. Now let me explain how I came up. I wanted to cleave, obviously, which I already mentioned. But how do I set it up? Also mentioned, right? Now that we have our DPS, the Messiah, and we have the Oval for the stun CC to deactivate Lighthouse and Gigabyte. Also, there were some defenses with Bulwark, but hey, you know what? It doesn't matter for my comp. I needed 2 support units for my Messiah to deal a lot of damage. Now, what I like about this team in particular, while I'm showing you how I beat all these defenses with the exact same team, is I speed tuned, by the way, my offense so that all my units are just 1 speed apart from each other, except obviously for the Messiah. Messiah is on a full DPS build, no speed, nothing, just full on DPS. The way it works is ideally you want to have them all on Codex, but the way I want to do it is after the stunning, the Tsuki boosts the Messiah S3 so we can do an S3, and then immediately after Beyonton is using her S2. By the way, for the Beyonton, you need her on 1-for-1 in terms of her skill ups, because at level 4 of her S2, she can cooldown reduce the skills of the unit you target by 2 turns, which basically allows you on a 3-turn cooldown unit like Messiah to cast your S3 immediately again. So that's why we do a Tsuki boost into Messiah into S3, followed up by a Beyonton S2 into the Messiah, who gets a turn immediately after with another S3. So you basically get 2 full S3 DPS buff with an attack buff on a Messiah on these targets, with even a count on it. I think this one I didn't show, with a count on it as well, right? So you get the full damage output of that team. Now this is basically how you set up. Now for the people who might play Summoner's War back in the days, this double Messiah S3 setup reminds me heavily of like a double Lucian back in the days, and this is extremely potent, this combination, which helps a lot. Like the last missing piece for me was really the O-Ball, which completely unlocked that offense for me. Like afterwards, if I can get all these units on Codex, so the only one which is missing right now is the Tsuki, but the ideal rotation is Obol S3, Tsuki S3, Messiah S3, then S2 Beyonton into Messiah S3, then Obol S3 again if necessary, then S3 Tsuki into Messiah, so Messiah does an S2 and he gets an attack buff again, and then Beyonton does her S2 again on the Messiah into another S3. So with a full rotation or 2 cycle, or the whole mechanic with the Codex itself, you're getting Messiah's S3 of 3 times with 1 time S2. This is the rotation you want to do. And then also once you run out of the buffs, you also have the Beyonton as kind of a failsafe as well, because of her S3 you get an attack and a crit damage buff, especially for longer fights when they use ammo and stuff like that, which increases the damage of the Messiah even further. And you do have a lot of turn meter manipulation because the Beyonton S1 pushes the turn meter. Now let me show you the units real quick. Now for example, the can you even look at the kit? Oh no, I can't look at the kit here, but if we look at the units real quick here, for example, a Bayo. Now her S1, I want to skill this one up specifically because her S1, if you use her S1, she turn meter boosts the ally with the lowest turn meter bar by 10% right now without any skill ups. If you get it to level 5, it's 25%. Then with the Tsuki as well, now when you boost her up to level 5, she now turn meter pushes your Messiah or DPS of choice by 25%. So now you get a lot of boost to cycle a lot. Now in the rotation, if you max skill, for example, a Beyonton S1 or whatever, when she's using her S1, because the unit which should be lowest at this point is Nitsuki or the Obol, depends. This actually depends because they are just so close in terms of speed. Now if you decide, for example, to boost Nitsuki further to like level 4 or something, with the 35% extra speed, she will be high on the Termida bar than, for example, an Obol, which then makes her as one push Obol. If you don't have that, then you will push the Tsuki, and the Tsuki will push the Messiah. And after you did all your codex stuff, you have so many different ways, then you can use the S2 of the Tsuki to reduce the cooldowns of your unit. So your Obol, for example, after doing like double S3, he gets his S3 back faster. Now this is very, very potent overall. Now those units you cannot underestimate. They are very, very powerful, and I plan on scaling them up even further because I really, really like this offense. As you saw also in the battles I just showed you, there were also people on Bulwark. But the interesting part is when people decide to use, for example, Lighthouse, or if they, for example, decide to use Gigabyte and they also stack up Bulwark, the cool thing about that is actually that when we look at the shells right now, for example, a Gigabyte does not have Bulwark as a supporting role. The same goes for Lighthouse. Lighthouse also does not have Bulwark as a supporting role, which is good. The reason why this is good is because if they run, for example, support, they do want to use Bloodbath, right? So they have Bloodbath, and if they use Bulwark with it as well, now they cannot get Swift pieces anymore, and they can also not use Swift Smite, so they lose a lot of speed. So in case they use that, the way you set up the team and making it fast, they cannot even cut in between because they are not fast enough to cut, because they decided to go with Bulwark, so they can't run. They need to use 3 pieces of Bulwark, and they need to use 3 pieces of Bloodbath as well. Now they're losing a lot of speed. The same is for the Gigabyte as well. Now if they decide to go with, let's say, a Swift Bulwark approach, okay, they can do that, but they also take a lot more damage because they're not running Bulwark, right? Now those are different ways of how you which you can keep in mind with when it comes to like, oh, when someone is using Bulwark, for example, and they don't run every single unit on Bulwark as well. If that happens in the future, we have to rethink, but then we get also new units that might change the metagame. We might get new shells, but as for the time being, I'm just showing you a way how I figured out how I want to counter these bruiser defenses, and I'm gonna abuse it as much as I can. I personally right now only target bruiser defense. I don't even target speed defense, even though it's a lot easier for me right now to win against those. But you know what? I just get enjoyment destroying bruiser devs who are just slapping Bloodbath sets on their team and think like, okay, no one will attack me. No, 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 I'm gonna farm your ass now. I'm gonna completely farm your ass now with my team. And you know what? I enjoy it. And guys, if you enjoyed watching this video as well, don't forget to leave a like and a comment down below. I really appreciate it. And see you with the next one. Deuces.